Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into the gift of responsibility. And before we get into that, I have this week's parenting moment because it actually fits in really well with this week's topic. So my kids are given chores to do after school every day, and it's shifted over the last couple of years, but we do have them help out. And my mom has been in town these last few weeks for the birth of the baby, and she likes to be busy and she just keeps doing and it's been great and I've absolutely loved it. And my kids were also recently on fall break, so we kind of just let it go by the wayside. But finally I had to say, okay, Mom, I love you, but we need the kids doing chores too. And she's like, oh, okay, well, can I help them with their chores? And I'm like, sure, that's fine. I'm good with that compromise. And so, with this, the point is they're still being responsible. They still have their responsibility, and they're also getting extra opportunities to connect and interact with grandma. So I really feel like it's a win-win situation. And so, chores are important, but so is family. And so I think that's going to be a really good thing for today. Is flexibility is going to be important, because we've also had days where, our kids have gotten home from school, particularly our oldest, who doesn't get home from the bus until like 4:00. She's gotten home from school and it's like, we have to go do something at like 4:30. Guess who's not doing chores that day? And that's fine. Like, flexibility I think is important when it comes to chores and responsibility and building confidence and connection, which is what the focus of today's episode is going to be, is reframing chores as opportunities for growth, not punishment. So let's start there and just dive into that. Tell me your guys' thoughts on this.
I think that's a great mind shift if you think differently about chores, to understand that chores actually give members of the family a sense of belonging. We know that when someone has a sense of belonging, it helps them to feel like they're a part of something. We know that people or children sometimes are motivated to misbehave when they do not feel like they belong or that they're not significant. So by them being involved in chores, they have a sense of meaning and purpose in their life.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's been for a long time, we've had this idea of chores could be used as a punishment. And it's such a terrible way to go about chores. Chores aren't just a task to be completed or a way to control a child. Chores really should be this idea of creating, like Selina was saying, this sense of belonging or this connection with the family. Almost like a, hey, I need you. I need you to do this because the family is depending on you. And that can drive a lot of things. But there's a billion things. And we're going to talk about a few of those today. There's a billion things that chores do for us. Even looking at having Liz, grandma, working side by side with your children, there are great lessons to be learned there. Chores done side by side with another adult are powerful. And it's such a great opportunity. So I love that you're doing that in your home.
I also like the thought of having chores as a way of teaching your kids life lessons, teaching them life skills, right? Mm-hmm. And that gives them self-worth when they feel that they are good at something or they can accomplish something or do something hard. It only just builds that for them. So I also like the idea of having chores to be a way of being able to teach them to become people that they want to be.
Yeah, and that idea of that confidence or competence comes in here too, right? Like when they've got chores to do and they successfully complete those chores, there is that sense of pride that comes and that confidence that they can accomplish things and they can get things done. It's just those beginning foundation blocks of life skills that help people be successful in life. So there's a ton of value here in having the family work together to care for the home.
Yeah, and we've made it a point to kind of reiterate that principle when I got pregnant. And my first trimester was pretty rough. I was pretty sick and pretty miserable. And so that was a big idea around it is, hey, mom's not feeling good. We need you guys helping out extra around the house to help alleviate me. And that fits in perfectly. I think that's a great reason to express responsibilities like, hey, we're a family. We take care of each other. We help each other out. And so that fits in. And, obviously I'm through the worst of it, but I'm also still really pregnant. And, there are some chores that are harder than others, like the dishes, you like unloading and loading the dishwasher. That one's a little bit tricky. And so again, it's helping my kids to feel like they are important and that they are doing something to help me and to help our family as it grows. And it really does create that sense of belonging, and it is important. But however, that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy and that your kids are not going to fight you. Oh, so many fights about you have to do this, or well, I don't want to do that one today. Can I do something else? Or also they're just maybe not going to feel like doing it one day is another struggle we have, or they may not even do it all the way. So many days where I'm like, nope, you got to go back and redo that. These are all common struggles and they're normal, and it doesn't make your kid lazy. It doesn't make you a lazy parent. It doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means you have kids that sometimes like to take shortcuts in life, and that's normal.
Well, here's the reality of it, Liz. Your kids don't care about chores as much as you do. They don't care if the house is clean. They don't care if things are done. Yeah. So when you get frustrated, like, why aren't they doing this? A real easy thought is because you're the only one that cares about this. You're the one that cares about it. So it's so normal for them to not care and to push back on that, because the reality is they don't care. They have enough of their own things that are important to them at that point in life that's what they are worried and spending their time thinking about. It's not important to them. And that's okay.
Yeah, they could care less if people come to our house and see that our toilet is dirty. That doesn't bother them. They don't care. But again, that doesn't mean that you don't still do it, right? So
no, you absolutely still have them do it. It's just instead of getting upset and frustrated, like wanting them to care as much as you do and to make it as important, you just decide, I'm the one that cares about this, so I'm the one that's going to make it happen.
Yep. Okay. And then, another thing too is if you consider long term, your kid goes off to college or they leave the house for the first time and they have roommates, I think it's really going to help them build better relationships and better connections with people because they know how to clean up after themselves. And they're comfortable with like, oh, hey, I had to do this regularly as a kid. So yeah, this is something that regularly needs done. And so they're gonna be thinking about that as they reach adulthood and realizing, yeah, there was a reason why mom cared so much, and maybe I do too. So, it's about long-term competency and again, just life skills. I think it's fantastic for your kid to leave home feeling confident, like, yeah, I can load a dishwasher and I can even cook some meals. And that's the other thing. I feel like sometimes we assign chores as cleaning, but chores don't necessarily have to be cleaning. Chores can be any type of, this is a responsibility I'm giving you. So maybe a chore could be one day a week, you're going to take care of dinner. Like you're going to plan, prepare, and you're going to completely cook dinner. Obviously, they've got to be age appropriate. I mean, maybe letting your 5-year-old's obviously not gonna cook dinner, and maybe not even your 9 or 10-year-old may not be cooking dinner for the family, and that's okay too. But but it's just this idea of, it could be anything, or maybe a chore can be, hey, your weekly or your chore for this day is babysitting your younger siblings so mom and dad can go on a date. All of those things are about helping create responsibility and a sense of belonging within the family. It doesn't just have to be cleaning toilets and scrubbing windows or doing the dishes. Chores can be pretty much anything that helps contribute to the running of the household.
Absolutely. So what does that look like when our kids are fighting and not wanting to do things? I have some ideas of things you can do to help with that. You could have a family meeting And that can start with, even when you're trying to come up with chores or responsibilities, you come together as a family and say, here are some things that need to be done. Which one would you want to do? What do you want to be responsible for? So then they have a say as to what it is that they are going to be responsible for. And that doesn't always work in every family. And sometimes you have your routine that works, and sometimes you have to change it up, right? For me, this kind of sounds funny. I have this chore chart that works just like perfectly of who is in charge of certain basic chores every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you, I can attest to how children want a sense of belonging, because my youngest was really disappointed our older son did not move out when he was 18, because she was really looking forward to being a part of the chore chart. Because right now, without getting into too much details, the way it lines up and the days it lines up, there's not a spot for her on the chore chart. So I just randomly give her chores every day, being the youngest, as she's been learning how to do more and more chores. But when he didn't move out, she was like, oh, because she thought she was going to finally replace him on the chore chart and be on the chore chart, which I find absolutely fascinating that she's disappointed in that.
I know. Well,
she would think she would be excited that she is not on that chore chart still, but to attest to that, she wants to be a sense of belonging in that chore chart that everybody talks about. There's attention given to that. We talk about it every day, and who and what and all of that. So she wants to be a part of that.
And that's another common struggle is when you first give young kids chores, like, oh yeah, I have something to do. And then they realize, oh, I have something to do.
Oh,
the novelty wears off.
My oldest two used to fight over who got to clean the toilet. And we were like, just don't tell them. They'll figure it out one day that they'd be like, you got to do it last time. Maybe they just wanted to fight. I don't know. But I share that. Sorry. I share that story just because it adjusts and it changes. I could sit here and say all the perfect chore chart setup and system and all of that, but it's evolved over the years. It's evolved over who's at home. It's evolved over, we've had to make adjustments because now a teenager works on a certain night that they have dishes and those need to get done and it didn't work. So we have to switch around their night or whatever, right? So I think having everyone involved and talking about it and making decisions, and if you have family meetings, it's a great place to discuss that. And even in our family meetings, it's like, okay, this isn't happening. What do you guys think should happen? How do we handle this? What do we do with this? And they come up with ideas that work for them, or we can adjust or keep talking about it.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of giving kids ownership over it and letting them choose, because I feel like it just adds to that sense of I'm responsible for this and I got to make the decision. I feel like it can lessen the fight over it. And, I also think that another key point to this is going to be consistency. And I've always thought consistency is like one of the hardest parts about parenting is the consistency and the follow through, because like you can establish something and maybe for a week or two you do it and then you kind of start to get wishy-washy and then it kind of starts like, oh, well, maybe not today, or I just didn't feel like enforcing it today. That's when you're going to have more of those fights. And to be fair, we've totally had days like when my kids are sick, I don't expect them to do chores. Like if you're staying home sick from school, you get out of your chores that day and that kind of thing. And so I'm not saying that there's never room for flexibility, but consistency is going to be key and there will be less fight over time. And that's the thing, is maybe it goes really well for like a week or two. And then your kids are going to be like, I do not want to do this. Do I have to do this today? And that's when it's important to say, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is our routine. We're going to get established. And eventually there will continue to be less and less conflict over it.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're sharing there, Liz. And you're right. Over time, we can improve. I think you're always going to see conflict with chores and kids. I don't know that that's ever going to go away. But the consistency is important. And having this follow through of here's the expectation and here's the consequence, right? And every family's going to look a little bit differently. In our house, when we look at teenagers, when they start to have things like cell phones and driving privileges, one of the ways we approach this is like, hey, it takes all of us to run a household. Like
Mhm.
we're all responsible for different things. And as long as you fulfill your responsibilities, you'll have access to those things. But if you can't fulfill your responsibility, you may not have access to a car or to a phone the way you might like, or access to time, right? Time is a big
Mhm.
commodity. So that means, oh, well, you didn't do your chore. I guess you're not going out with your friends this weekend because you're going to be busy doing your chore instead. So that's where we use the follow through and the consistency. And over time, I don't know that it's going to stop the fighting over the chores, but the family just begins to expect that this is the way it works. There's a great video. If any of our listeners want to listen to it, we could probably throw a link up to it. It's a Stephen R. Covey video called Green and Clean. It's a great concept in teaching children about chores. I love the video. It can be applied in all kinds of different settings, but from a chore perspective, it's a great way to give children ownership of the responsibilities you give them and not micromanaging them. And then we want to focus on the effort that they put in, not perfection, because they're not going to do it perfect, right?
Mhm.
I remember having one of our children at one point decide that she was going to wash every pair of jeans she owned and then some. I don't know how she had that many pairs of jeans, and broke the wash machine and just stuffed it so full that it broke. And we had to have a repair person come and fix it. And like, I could not believe how many pairs of jeans we pulled out of that washer, right? So they're going to make mistakes because they don't understand. They haven't learned yet, right? But that effort is important, and it's important for us to help them, because as we help them, what's going to happen is it's going to communicate to them that we trust them. We trust you enough with this responsibility that you're capable of handling it. And everybody wants to be trusted, even our teens. And so again, if we can move our mindset away from punishment and control and more into like, what are we learning and teaching? Then we can start to enhance that connection. Then we're building confidence. We're showing them that we trust them. Like, hey, I need this to happen every week, and I know you can do it because you're capable. All of a sudden they take sense of that trust and that expectation we put in them, and they're capable of getting to work and getting the things done that need to be done.
Well, and that follows right through with the natural consequence, right? We don't want to nag. Nobody wants to keep nagging their kids about chores.
Yep.
And I tend to fall into that and start nagging because I want it done at a certain time. So really stepping back, letting it be their choice and on their time. And when those things are not taken care of, the natural consequence that comes with it, whether that's something you guys choose as a family, like, okay, if you don't do your chore today, then that means you have to do your chore tomorrow and that chore again, right? Or the chore you didn't do previously. So they get creative with the consequences and what those look like. But sometimes there's just natural consequences. The washing machine situation, she surely knows to never put that many in, and so does everybody else in my family, even down to the baby who wasn't even there, because she's heard about it through our family throughout the whole time, right? So there's natural consequences that come from not getting your responsibilities done, and letting those just play out and let those things happen instead of nagging and just like, oh, hey, remember what did we agree to, when they're fighting back or trying to do other things or asking to go play with friends. It's like, oh yeah, so you have your chores done, right? And then they realize and want to do those things and take care of them.
Yeah. I love the idea of natural consequences. So one funny, it's kind of funny. At the time it was annoying, but I can look back now on it and laugh. Is so our 9-year-old, something that she would do is she would wait to do her chores. She would put it off just a little bit. And I was kind of the mindset of, I'm not going to nag. Like, if I don't care if they want to wait 20 or 30 minutes after they get home from school, sit and read a book or, play with the sibling. That's fine, whatever. But my 9-year-old, she has a very busy social life, so to speak. She's got tons of friends in the neighborhood. She's constantly moving in between friends' houses throughout the neighborhood, and I love it, and I think it's fantastic. So she's realized that if she waits just a little bit for her friends to come knocking, then they'll help her with her chore. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds like an entrepreneur you've got there. That's what she is.
She's figured out some resources to get things done.
Yeah, I'd say go. I'd celebrate that skill.
Yeah, well, the other problem is because they also have other responsibilities too that are less conducive when their friends over. So she's doing drum lessons, and so she like that's part of our routine is like, hey, if you're gonna take these drum lessons, you're gonna put forth the effort. Like, we're gonna require you to practice. And 9-year-olds don't practice an instrument very well when they have friends in the room distracting them. Anyways,
Truth.
and so, again, we've had to just kind of put our foot down and say, no, you need to be doing this chore. This needs to be your responsibility. I mean, I get where you guys are coming from, but we also found, because another part of the problem is it wasn't getting fully done, or they were rushing so they could get to other things. And so we kind of had to put our foot down and be like, no, you have to do this. A lot of times too, what's been helpful with that is like, well, can they just stay here and play with our younger brother? And I'm like, sure, that I actually love, because that poor kid's always looking for people to hang out with. And so again, just that flexibility and trying to be accommodating and giving them that sense of ownership and belonging over something, so that it's less of a drudgery to them.
I want to interject something here, Liz, and you're right. And I know we're kind of being silly about celebrating, having their friends come and be resourceful and help.
Uh-huh.
And I get where you're coming from, but this is exactly what we're talking about with looking at chores from this perspective of life lessons, right? Like I would celebrate that with her and lay out the expectation that your chores aren't for your friends to do. But man, I think that's so cool that you found a way to incorporate them into completing your responsibilities, to find other resources to get them done. This might not be appropriate in this moment for you, but great job on finding ways to get it done. So just an opportunity to build connection a little bit there and to help them feel that what they thought about was valuable, and their solution to overcoming problems is valuable.
Yeah, I think that is a really good way to come at it and look at it, is because, and oftentimes boredom begets creativity, and, kids probably find chores boring and it's not something they want to do. And so, I think encouraging creativity is a good way to do it. And so last year we had a day, like they just had a daily chore. They came home from school and they knew this day you're doing this chore. And one way that I gave them flexibility is said, oh, can I do today's chore tomorrow and tomorrow's chore today? Like they'd want to switch the days. And I say, okay, sure, fine. Like, that I don't care about. And so again, giving them as much flexibility as possible and letting them have ownership, it does create less friction and less conflict. And the reason I bring this up, and the point is you need to focus on what your goal is when it comes to chores. Is my goal just to, make sure my kids have less screen time? Or is my goal to teach them responsibility, to give them a sense of belonging? And so, just this idea of offering flexibility and saying, hey, I've got this going on. So can I, I've got this thing going on. Is it okay if just for today I skip my chore? Is that going to work? Say, yeah, I totally get it. If you've got this school thing going on, then no, we're going to change the expectations. So I think that's really going to help create a partnership with chores rather than a dictator who is just handing out the daily assignments and it's either do or don't.
I wonder if we could take that just a little further, Liz. And we look at this idea of like, hey, can I shift this chore? Do this today's chore tomorrow and tomorrow's chore today? Here's a great opportunity to partner with your kids too, right? Where you could say, I don't know. What does that look like? What would the consequences like? Because if today's chore is taking the trash out and tomorrow's chore is washing laundry, well, maybe your laundry being washed today would get in the way of somebody else's chore to do the laundry. And maybe taking out the trash tomorrow isn't the best idea because of how it's going to smell. So then you help them make the decision whether or not they ought to make that change, or whether or not we could skip a chore. Like, here's a great life lesson. Sometimes we have things we need to get done, but real life gets in the way. And so what does this look like if we just skip the chore? What's more important? What has a higher value level for us, and what has a greater consequence? Because everything has a consequence, right? So if you say, well, can I just skip my chore, but my chore is laundry, and then tomorrow morning I get up and I don't have clean clothes, maybe we should have figured out a way to do the laundry. Or if my chore today is to make dinner and the whole family's not going to eat, maybe we better find a better solution than just skipping the chore. Maybe I could trade chores with somebody. Maybe I can ask for help. Mom, could you help me out with my laundry or making the dinner because I have this going on? Now we're being resourceful, right? So we can take that just a little bit deeper. That creates a partnership, because that's what we want. As our kids get further and further into the teen years, we want to create partnerships with them instead of, like you were saying, that dictator type mentality where we work together and we help solve problems and find solutions. And they look at us as a mentor instead of a dictator, instead of a controlling parent, which probably is a better word than a dictator, but just use those opportunities. And that's what they're there for. That's why we're doing this. We're not just trying to get a task done or things completed. While that is part of it and it's beneficial and it's important, there's greater lessons that can be learned here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the final thing I want to address is something very, very common when parents feel it's easier to do it myself. and there is a lot of truth to that.
Absolutely.
And that's just real. Like sometimes it is easier in the moment. You're like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm not going to have to clean this toilet as often because I'm going to have my kids doing it. But then you're going to go in there and you'll be like, well, now first I have to make sure they do it. And then I also have to make sure they do it properly. And you have to make that decision. You have to kind of make that decision of, okay, do I just be okay with the job that they did, or do I make them keep going back and redoing it? And do I have that fight with them? Because, oh, my kids have come back with, well, I did do it. Okay, but you didn't do it thoroughly. Well, that doesn't matter. Okay, but it matters to me, right? And so I get it's just easier to just do it myself. But in the end, it's important. and it just ties back to all of the things that we've said of, no, chores matter. And what's the point? And what are you trying to accomplish with the chores? And so that's why, even if it is easier, do it anyways, or rather have them do it anyways.
And I like this because I can go back to this video that I recommended that we watched, the green and clean video. What we can do, and you'll see this in the video if you watch it, but what we can do is help set what the expectation is for our kids, help them to see what our vision is for the chore. And if the chore is to clean the counter, they need to be able to see what a clean counter actually means and looks like. If it's to clean a toilet, this is the process we go through, right? We don't drop the rag inside the toilet bowl and then wipe all over the place, right? Because that would be unsanitary. So we help them see what the process looks like and what the expectation is, and then help them meet that expectation. And when we go in and we see that that's not done, we can ask those simple questions, right? Did we follow the process? Do we understand the expectation, or do we not understand the expectation? These things are important. And what's going to happen is it's going to be a fight throughout their childhood, right? It's just going to be, because chores are non-preferred activities. We don't want to do that. Even as adults, we don't want to.
Yep.
Quite often, right? But I can tell you, for Selina and I, every one of our adult children at some point, and even one that's not quite an adult yet, have thanked us for teaching them to work. And it's genuine when that happens, because they all of a sudden, they start to see that, oh, this was applicable to me in real life. Some of them can run circles around coworkers at jobs that they've had because the coworkers weren't taught to work. And it's very hard for the coworkers and for them. Oh, this is just part of life. This is what we do. And they can enjoy their time. So it's been a great process for us. And we've been anything but perfect when it comes to teaching our kids chores and responsibilities. But a lot of the things that we teach here are things that we've learned from our own lessons, and then research that we do, and reading that we do, and other work that we do. That's where these ideas and thoughts come from. But they're effective and they're important for us to give to our children, and especially that piece of belonging and connection within the family.
Just doing it ourselves goes against that thought process that we already talked about, of how it is opportunities for them to learn skills, or how we want them to be as they're older and have those valuable lessons. So if we're doing it ourselves, yeah, of course, it would be faster and easier, and sometimes a lot less messy. And sometimes we just want to get it done, right? But that philosophy in doing that, it is easier to just do it yourself. But if we are thinking that we are trying to teach them lessons, we're trying to help them to be capable adults or have certain life skills that they want to learn or we want them to learn, then that's what that's going to accomplish, is taking the time and the work that goes into allowing them to be able to accomplish those chores in the way that it looks like that they do it.
As a teenager, I hated mowing the lawn, and my dad made, and part of it was because he made me do the push mower, and I hated it. I'm like, this is so stupid. Why do I have to use a stupid push mower? Why can't I just do the riding lawn mower like my brothers get to? Because we were on like an 1.5 acre lot. And I even asked my dad about it one time, and I think he said it was because he didn't want the mulched grass in the front yard. He wanted it to look neater. Well, I turned out to be grateful when I was older, because as it turns out, Curtis is really, really allergic to grass, and he would mow the grass and it would knock him out for like 3 days with a sinus headache. And guess who mowed the lawn? Guess who took on that responsibility? That would be me, and it was with a push mower. So it just goes to your point of, yeah, kids, they will be grateful. They're not going to be grateful when they're younger. So that's too much to ask for, but it comes. It does come as they grow and mature. Okay, final thoughts.
Yeah, just going back to realizing that giving our children, our teens, responsibility actually helps them to have a sense of belonging. It's going to help them in life, and it's going to help us to have family connections. It actually will give us opportunities to connect when we're approaching it in the right way.
Yeah, kind of right along those same lines. My thoughts are looking for opportunities within this process of chores. What are we throwing away as parents when we don't engage with our children in chores? Of course, we want to start this when children are young. Very young children can complete simple chores and tasks, and it should start at a very, very young age. And if your kids are just teenagers now and you've never done it, so what? Let's get started. Let's find a way to incorporate this. But looking for those opportunities, because now is where we can find connection inside of these chore opportunities, and not looking at this as a punishment.
Yeah. Yep. Good final thoughts. Okay. So next week, we're going to circle back to maybe what we should have done earlier than that is gratitude. And I feel like it still works, because gratitude can actually still be really important going into the Christmas season, if Christmas is the main holiday that you celebrate. But any of those other major holidays too that happen around December focus very much on material things. So I feel like gratitude is still going to be very much applicable for December. And we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.